Welcome to the Caribbean Edge. We are here tonight to discuss a very important topic. My name is Dawn Wilson, your host for the evening, and we are here to talk about bullying. I do want to mention that our sponsor for tonight's show, Miss Laverne Gordon from Love Life Now Foundation. Yes, she's a huge fan of the Caribbean Edge, and she's actually been on the show twice, but she is, her cause is all about domestic violence and, just year round being able to support people with her foundation. So Love Life Now Foundation, Ms. Laverne Gordon, thank you for sponsoring tonight's episode on bullying. I do want to welcome my distinguished guest for the evening. I do have Mr. Kishai Martin. Welcome, Kishai. And he's joined by Sharon, Antonio, and Yvonne. So I'm going to let them all introduce themselves, starting with Kishai. Welcome again, Kishai. You're no stranger to the Caribbean Edge.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great 2021 and a great week. It is my third time on the Caribbean Edge. So happy to be here with you, Dawn, and everybody here on the panel. I am 32 years old. Yeah, I'm 32 years old. I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I work in public health. I focus mostly on sexual health education, and I also promote services for those who are underserved. And I also am a dancer. I love entertainment, performing, art. That's my thing. And I'm happy to be here. This is a topic that is something that I have experienced and also have witnessed. So I would love to share my experience as well as hear what the others have to say. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Kishai. And we are certainly interested in sharing that personal experience, because through communication, through sharing our knowledge and experiences, and certainly how that made you feel, is how we'll continue to impact and educate others, especially our children. If anyone knows me, I'm certainly passionate about our children, and as parents and grandparents and as humans, we want our kids to gain more knowledge. We have social media that certainly allows us to do that. So thank you, Kishai. Welcome. And I'm going to switch over to Miss Yvonne. Welcome, Yvonne. First time on TCE.
First time. Can you imagine? Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Yvonne Barnett. From Fort Lauderdale, more so in Broward. I immigration and business consultant. Bullying is one thing it's close to me. It happened to my kids. It was hard for me to know how to deal with it, because part of you just want to dive in and try to protect. But I haven't found a way how to deal with it. So it was very close to me. I deal with, in the communities, I deal with immigrants. So some who are being bullied, they reach out to me for everything. So it's part of what I have to deal with.
Thank you. And I'm interested in how you deal with it as a parent, because I know that some of us island people, and probably just people in general, parents, it is so difficult, because we'll discipline our kids, but when it comes to people messing with them, yeah, that's hard.
And also the other side, where you don't want your kids to be bullied, you don't want them to be part of that, the bullier. You don't want that. So, the toss up.
And how do you deal with that?
And how I deal with that. Yeah.
And are you aware your child is doing it? And if it's brought to your attention, how are you going to handle that as well?
Exactly. I'm hands-on. So I'm from the island.
Yeah. Antonio, who is his second time on the Caribbean Edge, and we were chatting a little bit before we went live, just joking around a little bit, because Antonio, who is so dedicated and such a strong individual in his community, joined us for our domestic violence episode by candle and cell phone because he lost power. But it was such an important topic to him that he didn't hesitate to still join us. So we thank you for that. And we thank you for joining us again for this very powerful episode. Welcome back, Antonio.
Thank you for having me. The Love Life Now ribbon is right here, the White Ribbon Campaign, which is where we challenge men to take a pledge that when we see or witness or hear about any type of violence or sexual assault going on, we're not going to stand here and be like, oh, that's not my business. We're not doing that anymore. I'm challenging every man USA. We are not turning our eye when we see something like this going on. We got to say something, man. Because at the end of the day, when I think about it, man, that's somebody's sister. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's mom. That's somebody's whatever. You got one of those. Personalize it and say, you know what? You do what you need to do to diffuse the situation. I'm not saying to put a cape on and jump in because you might get hurt. We know that, but there's ways to intervene, and this is what I focus on a lot more: teaching life skills, how to intervene to help others, being pro-social bystanders. And I think after losing my daughter 2 years ago, who was bullied, and how the way she did, it wasn't because of that she passed, but it's the way when she was being bullied, that pain, she transferred it to protect others that were being bullied. And it was weird because it was crazy because she would say, you are not doing this to any one of these kids. Meanwhile, they're making fun of her with the way she walks. You know what I'm saying? But that didn't bother her. She was more focused on helping others. That's not going to happen on my watch. So she showed me how to see that. And we discovered this thing called Maya effect. Her name was Samaya. We call it Maya effect. And we're actually working on it right now in dialectical behavior therapy, where we're looking at what happens when you take a pain and transfer it into joy. And that's what she did. So we're trying to find how do we teach that, how we break it down and help others develop those skills. So that's what my company, Metanoia. But I'm happy to be here tonight. I can't wait to have a conversation. This is hard. It's going to be a hard conversation, but it's needed. It's needed. And I appreciate you for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Antonio, heartfelt about your daughter. And thank you for being here, for being vulnerable and for sharing that with us. I told myself I would not get teary-eyed already. Just thank you. Thank you. Sharon, welcome. First time to the Caribbean Edge and such an important topic. This conversation actually started with you. I've wanted to talk about bullying for a while, for years actually on the show, and just never did. And I was speaking to you about another episode and your story struck me. And I said, I want you to be on the bullying episode. And then from there, it just took off with everyone you're seeing tonight. So welcome and tell us about you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me to come on and share my story. My name is Sharon Corinthian. I'm a mother of 2 boys, an entrepreneur, aspiring writer, blogger. I guess you could say you could call me a community activist as well. Bullying for me has been a part of my life. I left Jamaica when I was 8 years old. And that's when I started to experience bullying going to school. I come from a big family, so I never really needed friends. But when we came to America, everybody kind of separated and had to find their own way. And that's when I started experiencing bullying. And I tell you what, it has shaped and changed my life forever. Started out as a bad thing, but ended up being a good thing. I realized the power of words. And now as a poet, which I'm also a poet, as a poet, I use words to, instead of pulling people down, I use my words very carefully to uplift people and show them the power of words. So I call it from tragedy to triumph.
Thank you. And I would love if you just tell us your story.
Well, as I said, I'm from a big family. My family migrated here to the United States when I was 8 years old. I was always close to my sister. My sister, she was my best friend. She was my protector. She was everything. She's 2 years older than me. So when we came to America, she went to a different grade. And of course, the anxiety separation, that was the worst, because I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't see her. And I've always been a little shy. But when I started middle school, the kids started making fun. You speak differently. I mean, we speak English as Jamaicans, but we speak Pat, we have a different accent. And I come from a very strict Christian family. So we dress differently. And they ridiculed me in school. They told me that I eat cats, that I look weird, that I dress weird. So that I drew into a shell, and I became the teacher's pet because I never talked. The only time I would talk is if the teacher would ask me a question one-on-one. I never raised my hand. I never interacted in school. And I never even, I was so shy that I never ate lunch at school. So I was just in this little bubble by myself at school until I got home. When I got home, nobody in my house knew what was going on, because when I got home, I was with my family. I kind of put it to the side. I forgot about it. But if anything came up at home with my sisters and brothers, I would act out, because I knew that they wouldn't hurt me. You understand? But in school, I took the abuse. I took the abuse because I was afraid of what might happen. And so instead of speaking out, I learned how to write my emotions down. And I would write everything down, and I would keep a diary. And then it just evolved from there. It just evolved into me being a very shy and introverted person.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Sharon. And I know for a lot of us growing up, we kept diaries. That diary is, my diary is nowhere near your diary, and yours is nowhere near mine. So I can just imagine how personal that diary is. And have you held on to that diary?
Not necessarily, not physically, but internally, yes. Internally, yes. And I use that to still today to help me write some of the things that I do write. But physically having that diary, I'll tell you what happened. I did have it still, and I had a house, and I rented a room in my house, and I was sharing some of the experiences and some of the things with the person that was living in the house. And next thing I know, the person left, and so did my diary. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. Wow. I hope they do return such a personal item to you.
I seriously doubt it. It's been so long. I wouldn't even know where that person is right now. So I doubt if I'll ever get the diary back. But what I have inside of me, they could never take away. So.
Right. Correct. And I know some of the reasons, and you mentioned it, and I know Antonia did too, was, like physical appearance is one. The fact that we are from the Caribbean and we may have an accent, some stronger than others. We seem different. And some of it could be intimidation because, Caribbeans, we are also very smart. We have a very good school structure growing up in the islands, not to say anywhere else doesn't have it, but that's known for the Caribbean. And it carries through for us Caribbean American parents, because a lot of us have kids here. Our gender, our disabilities is another reason. Our religion and our sexual preferences are some of the reasons that people are being bullied. And 1 in 5 kids is the ratio that I found that are being bullied. And that's very high. That's somebody's.
I think that's on an international level. 1 in 5 on an international level.
It was for the US. Do you have another one for the US specifically?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So it's 1 in 5 is what I found. Yvonne?
Yeah, you speak about different things that someone might see different about you. The way our language, our diction, the way we pronounce things. You know, lately everybody's going natural.
Right.
So the hair is either big and puffy, coily and tight, or just you're nappy. Um, I have my two girls, and they're night and day. One is a fighter, one I thought wasn't. And when she started FIU, to be exact, you know, she's like a mouse, she wears glasses. She was approached. She was approached because of her hair. Majority of the time, the classes she would be in is she would be the only African American person in the class. And she told me once that she had to stand up because I said to them, don't start anything. But by God, you better finish it after a certain time. And it was a male. She said she had to stand up, and when she started to talk, she said she thought I was a person talking. So you know what she was saying then. But it was about her hair and how she looked and how her body is and everything. But growing up in my community, my mom will have two girls too, so we were protected. I grew up in the inner city, the ghetto. So we weren't bullied much, really, per se. I went to an all-girls school, Don. You know, yes, said to you. So we weren't bullied much, but my girls, they went to a prep school, a private school. And it was while there, the same daughter, we experienced, she was experienced being bullied. And she knew it was wrong. And she spoke to me. It happened to be a young lady that attended school with her and also private lesson. I spoke to the teacher. I spoke to the mom. And this very said night when I went to pick her up, the father of the child, he worked at a prominent place in New Kingston. He decided to approach me to come around. He had his firearm inside of his waist. He normally he's not coming into a place where he thought he would be threatened. You know, we're in a community, everything is safe. And he's you know what he told me? He told me to have my child grow a backbone, and she's going to go into society and it's life. Oh Lord. He just went, I just went off on him. Because I'm saying you have a daughter and this is how you are going to put her out there. She expects. So I tell him, no, the next time it happens, then he's going to have to deal with me. And I even went further, said, obviously, this is how you are at home. Why she thinks it is okay for her to deal with something like that or to approach. I don't like bullying. I don't, it's something I hate. And what I see happening now, the bullying is like you cancel. The thing is, it's new thing, cancel culture. If I don't like you, don't like how you present yourself, I'm putting everybody away from you. It's something, no. And I would hate if I know one of my child is doing that. No, then they have to speak to me. I will treat them the same way I will treat, because you don't do that. If something is happening, come and let us deal with it.
Yeah, I remember my son in middle school, and I asked him tonight before the show, I said, do you remember being bullied? And he said, yeah. So he said, what happened? I said, what happened? And he said, the kids got suspended. So I remember he came home one day and he told me that the kids were hitting him in the back of his head on the school bus. So I called the school because I'm not going to stand for that. And I had a conversation with them. And I said, unless you want to see me on that school bus every morning, riding on that bus to school so that no one hits my kid, you handle it. And they handled it. And he never got touched again. And, you know, I didn't have that experience with my daughter probably because, you know, she was always the taller child and she was just athletic and always involved in a lot of things. So she didn't go through that. So personally, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I do know the mother I am. what I would
Mm,
do. And as my daughter got older, an adult said something to my daughter, and she obliged, and she came home and told me about it. And I certainly called that mom up and I said, if you have a problem, you address me as her mother. You have my number. You do not go directly to her. My child was in the right. So it's not to say if she was wrong, I wouldn't have addressed it. The point is, it also sent a message to my daughter, even though when I was in the act of defending her, I didn't realize it. But at the end of it all, she said to me, Mom, thank you for defending me. I think it sends such a strong message to your children, the way you handle situations. You don't have to be violent or abusive about it. It's just addressing it to put an end to it so someone doesn't make your child feel less or inferior, which is what bullying does to you. So I think it happens at all ages too, because my daughter is grown and this just happened last year. I mean, she's 21 now, so I'm still defending her as a mom. So I want to reach out to Kishai. Kishai, tell us about your experience.
Oh, well, I first experienced bullying in grade school, in elementary school. It was from a number of different angles. The first was questions about my sexuality at 5 years old. Yes, at 5 years old. People discrediting my masculinity, telling me that I spoke too much like a girl and that I hung out with the girls too much. Discrediting my blackness. You want to be a white person. Look at how you talk. You talk properly. That's not how a Black person talks. So that was grade school. And I always had a response. I always defended myself. However, there were a lot of people over the years who would join in. Like literally, I'd be on the bus minding my business and you're gay, blah, blah, blah. Just every day, every day, every day. And there were people who would stick up for me. I would stick up for myself. But there were children who literally enjoyed saying these things to me, telling me these things. And I had a lot of anxiety in elementary school. I used to dread having to go to school. Middle school, it got worse. I had a growth spurt. So now I'm being told that I'm fat on top of everything else. And I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling suicidal. I actually nearly failed 6th and 7th grade. I had to go to summer school because I was not studying, because I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want anything to do with education. And I'll never forget getting a tour of the high school, and these kids were behind me and they would not shut up. I started to have an anxiety attack and I started to cry, and they were laughing as I was unable to breathe and crying. I went to the front office, and that's another thing I did. I had a great relationship with all of my teachers, all of the staff up front, because I would leave the classroom and cry so they knew who I was. The counselor on site knew who I was. I was never afraid of therapy. We went to therapy. My family went to therapy with me, and my family really was always my backbone. And I did have family on campus. I had a lot of friends. I was in yearbook, I was in chorus, I was in soccer, I was in so much. So I knew a lot of people. A lot of people would stand up for me, but a lot of people were also just on the sidelines watching. So a lot of these guys, it was mostly men, mostly young boys. A lot of them, because of toxic masculinity, they were encouraged and enabled to protect masculinity and pretty much police and dictate how everyone should act. And if you're too soft, you're going to get made fun of. I was spat on, I was hit, I was cursed at, and I just decided I need to get on their level. So once I started to curse, once I started to throw hands, once I started to talk crap, it was like that's what they wanted from me. It's like in high school, it just stopped. They wanted me to get on their level. So when I started speaking their language, they started to shut up. Unfortunately, a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people who get bullied, we see the outcome of these school shootings. What is the common thread
Right.
These kids who go to schools, and unfortunately, even
Yeah.
with Stoneman Douglas, I know students who were there at the day of the Stoneman Douglas shooting. I know people who know the killer, and that boy was bullied. Same thing with Columbine. Those kids were bullied. So some people deal with it violently. Some people internalized it. Even though I spoke out and I was well known, I internalized it. And it took me going to therapy in college to realize that I'm deeply traumatized. I overcompensate by trying to get everyone to like me. So now as a young adult, I'm a people pleaser because I want to be accepted. So I overcompensate by making myself available and trying hard to be everyone's friend so that I'm not hearing negative things about me. Dating life sucked. Didn't think I was attractive. Didn't think I was worthy because of even hearing that I wasn't attractive or that no one's gonna want you. You ain't gonna get no girl. But I heard all of that stuff and I internalized it. So my dating life took a while. And then I realized that I had triggers. Like even to this day, if I hear a loud noise, if someone raises their voice at me, if someone curses at me, or if I hear a slur, I'm ready to fight. And I have to remind myself that I'm not there anymore. It's now as an adult, though, I'm also trying to understand what would make a child want to bully another child. And even though I give no mercy, I give no benefit of the doubt to anyone in school, a lot of people who are bullies, they thought it was possibly survival mode, like you don't want to be the target, so you bully someone else to take the heat off of you. But I don't think any form of abuse is acceptable. But what I'm thinking is that in these environments that the people come from, bullying is normal, abuse is normal, no matter whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or sexual. So they're coming into a school environment and they are pretty much surviving in a way that they are to prove themselves so that they don't face the same things. And a lot of bullies have been bullied and they become bullies. And that's my experience in a nutshell. But I've really dedicated my whole life now through my work to not only um, defend people who've been bullied, but also to encourage mental health. People need to be in therapy. People also who are on the sidelines, who are silent, they're complicit. And I'm telling people now, if you need to know what your child is doing in school. You also need to be aware of attitudes as an adult that you have and habits that you have that might be bullying. There are things that we do. I mean, we see bullying in the media, in the workplace, child to parent, parent to child. It's not just in schools. I see it in relationships. I see it in friendships. It's abuse, and we need to call it for what it is, but we have to know why it is that way, how it got that way, and how to get over it. For me, it was therapy. It's still therapy, but it's still happening. And conversations like this are going to help us move forward and handle it better.
And I thank you, Kishai. You touched on so much there, and I just can't. I am so sorry that you went through what you went through. I mean, it's just horrific. But I'm so thankful that you are strong enough and such a great man to come on here and share your experience so people that watch this can see what the impact, the long-lasting, the long-term impact that they've had on your life. So maybe they won't do it to someone else. And you touched on some of the reasons that people bully, because I actually had to look that up. And it says, it could be very strict parents that are abusive was one. They lack attention at home. Older siblings is another reason that people bully, because their siblings are bullying them, so they come to school and bully. The role models, us as adults, if we're bullying and being so aggressive to other people, translates to your children. They're seeing what you're doing. If you're abusing your partners in life, they're portraying that in school. And I know we mentioned bullying is also happening on the school bus, but what I also did find out is, like, statistically in the hallways and stairwells at school, it's 43%. Inside a classroom, it's 42%, which I thought was really, really high because there's an adult teacher in that room.
They're bold. They'll say stuff right in front of the teacher too.
Oh yeah, but
No,
so that's an interesting point there. The cafeteria was listed at 27%.
exactly.
Outside school, on the school grounds, was 22%. There's also online bullying, which was 15%, which is online and through texting. In the bathroom locker room was 12%, and the school bus was 8%. So even if these statistics are kind of off, and these came from the National Center of Education Statistics, okay? So let's look at inside the classroom. And I did watch a video with a teacher. She was a young teacher. She lost 2 kids to suicide because they were being bullied. And so the message that I personally got from that as a mom was making sure my kids feel like they are loved and that they can come home and talk to me about anything and know that I'm going to address it. But when they go back, when you know someone that's taken their own life because they're bullying, you're like, your hands are tied to some degree as a teacher because you're told not to get as close, or you have to not cross lines with parents and everything else. So it's challenging, but wow, these conversations need to happen. Anyone want to talk about what Kishai just said? Because it was so many interesting points.
Kishai said, one of the things that stood out with Kishai said, they are being bullied. And you touched on that as well. And this always comes back to me. Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hurt people hurt people. You are hurt. You don't know how to channel that hurt.
Right.
It's and our community, African American community, we don't believe, or we are scared, or there's some taboo thing to talk about going to therapy. So, and as I was explaining to somebody, going to therapy is not like you are mental, you are sick, and you need someone to talk to. Because sometimes day-to-day life, you have so many different things happening one way or the other. I mean, how many bottles of wine can you drink? How many cigarettes can you smoke? How many weed can you light up? What are you going to do? So as I told a friend of mine, I said to him, I exercise a lot because I don't look good in stripes, I don't look good in orange. So somebody's going to feel these hands. So, hey, but as I say, we have to find a way to channel. We have to find a way to know we can communicate. I don't know if because it is news, because this is the new era of the computer. Back when we were growing up, we know how to socialize. We know how to deal with people. We know how to talk to each other. So the feelings is talked out. Now, is that the kids are locked up inside the and this is pre-COVID, the kids are locked up inside the library, or the only way they socialize is either on a netball field or doing something. They don't play the kind of games we'll play anymore. That some of us know that if you touch me a certain way, it is not acceptable. They don't do that. It is, and they don't, it is not. And I wonder.
It's a lack of boundaries, and
it's
a lack of
boundaries,
social interaction.
And then when those boundaries are set, you as an individual set those boundaries. They're like, who are you? Why you think you can? And it's like somebody saw me the other day, my hair is always out. You should know my hair is always. And this is, and she's like up in my hair, and I'm like, okay, it's about to go down. It's about to go down. Yeah. And I'm like, excuse me. And then she's like, is this for? And the other side of me wanted to come, and I said, this is my hair. And she wanted to touch. I'm like, I'm like, back up. Just like that, shout. I said, back up. These are boundaries.
Yeah, but Kishai pointed out something, as an adult, I think we are more capable, some of us, as we've gotten older and more mature, how to handle certain situations. But if you put yourself in the mind of a child that is subjected to this behavior, this torture, how withdrawn they become.
Right.
In times that they don't even speak, they could have a loving household and they're still not telling their parents. So some of the kids get withdrawn. Some of them, their grades drop in school. But if your kid's not talking to you as a parent, that's also very difficult to get to. And I've said stuff to my kids. I said, you can always talk to me. I'm always here for you. And it doesn't mean they tell me everything. So Antonia, having a daughter that was specifically impacted by this, let's hear from you.
First of all, I have to say thank you for having this conversation. And the other piece is, let's define what bullying means. Because it means different thing for all. There's 5 of us in here. We have 5 different experiences and 5 different beliefs of what it is. But if we go back about the 1500s, bullying came from the word boel, B-O-E-L-E, which meant lover, which meant friend, which meant brother, sidekick. That was the original meaning of the word, bully. And for right now, we're like, it's hurting us. That friend, that close one, that brother, that sister, that sidekick, it's the person right now that is hurting you, which means they know something about you and they know how to just go like this to it and get you off. They know exactly what it is. You talk funny, Sharon. Bing! They say that to you. They got control over you. You smell funny. You eat cat. As a Haitian kid, they sent me to Haiti when I was younger. So I went to Haiti when I was maybe 2.5 years old. I lived with my grandmother in the city. We talk about Port-au-Prince, real by the stadium, by the cemetery there. Anybody from Haiti know what I'm talking about? And I remember I had 2 cousins. They came from the countryside and they came to the city to come to school. And they were, like you say, smart. Everybody from the island is like, school is everything. So these dudes are doing division upside down, all these stuff. They're young and they're doing great work. So my grandmother, who took care of me, thought it was a great idea if those kids would tutor me. Because I went to one of those prestigious schools in Haiti called Saint Louis, which is like the Harvard of Haiti. So this is where the president's kids went, the ambassadors' kids, every rich kids go there. And I go to that school. And when I'm in that school, I put on this thing, I learned very early on how to put on this mask to fit right in with the limousine, with the Lamborghinis and everything. We're talking about 1982, 3. Dudes are getting chauffeured, rich kids. And I'm walking from the hood to that community to go to school. And so when I would go to school, when I'm walking to school, the neighborhood would call me American Pig, to a point where I thought that was my name for the longest time. Yo, American Cochon. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, it wasn't an insult. I almost believed it, which meant an American pig. And the pigs back then in Haiti, before the US played the Haitian and killed all the black pigs and traded them for the pink ones. Come on, man, really? That's what happened. So we'll talk about that later on, the effect that it had on Haiti. So I was referred to as the black pig, as an American pig, which meant I fought for everything that I got. And when I went to that school, one of those rich kids, I say rich because he was powerful. He had bodyguards inside the school with him, So he does this, being disrespectful to a kid, picking on a kid. And that courage, that person that said, you know what, I'm not going to stand for this. And I did something. And yes, I got physical. And by hitting that kid, I hit that kid on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I was on a plane without a suitcase to the US. You know what I'm saying? I was out because my life was in danger. Fast forward, reaching right here in Dorchester, Mass. We moved to a place called Lorna Road. If anybody knows Lorna Road, it's not too far. It's off of Morton Street, where this gang named Corbett back in the days. Where the older players, they ran the block. They were like, you look up to these kids, but at the same time, when you get off that bus to go home, good luck with that. You might not make it. I had an accent. I wore shoes. I didn't wear sneakers. I wore shoes and I can run. So it's like every time I get off the bus, try to find a long way home to avoid getting picked on. I remember I had a little Kango and I had a raccoon tail and somebody picked it. And I was like, I can't go home without that dog. I mean, my English wasn't all that. And I think like Keisha said, I picked this up and started swinging. And it's almost like, oh, shoot, you can fight? Yeah. And by doing that, it was okay for me to walk in the neighborhood. And it's like, I didn't want to do that. It's like it forces you to become someone you don't want to be. I'm a nonviolent kind of guy. But at the same time, when I was younger, I didn't learn how to speak because the level of abuse my two cousins I mentioned earlier used to put on me. And in Haiti, as you know, when you're studying something, you got to recite it verbatim off the top. That's why you learn. That shows that you'll learn. That's how they measure your academics. Recite 2 pages of this poem. I'm like, what? Off the top? It's impossible. Because I have different learning disabilities. But in the islands, we don't look at that. Even your parents will verbally abuse you. You freaking idiot. What's wrong with you, you dummy? You this, you that. Because the whole culture sees it like that. They don't see why I stutter. When I'm stuttering, people in the neighborhood are like, oh, they're laughing at me. And again, when they're laughing at me to get the word out, I would either hit something real hard to get the word out. You know, that's how I train myself. There was no therapy over there when I was growing up. So I would hit something for the word to come up to help it. And when kids would make fun of me one time, I took this kid, because they were making fun of me, grabbed his head, that was back in Haiti, and held it down underwater. Just held it right there. And I think that's when they called my mother in the US and told her, you got to do something, get this kid out of here, get him out of here, because I'm going to get myself in trouble. Because no one took time to find out why was I, quote unquote, violent. Why am I fighting? Why I'm protecting myself? Because that's all I have. Because if I tell somebody that my cousins were abusing me, they'd be like, get out of here. Not those cousins. They're extra smart. They're older than you. They're light-skinned. They freaking speak French. They do all that just to give that person who's abusing you that much power. So I know I'm not going to win. So I just go ahead and live my life. I'm peeing the bed at freaking 12. No one takes a look at that. So now I'm in Boston. I'm going to school in a place called Milton, which is the suburb. We're talking about 1983, 84. I can count how many black kids we had in that school. And I was one of them with an accent. Oh my goodness. Talk about anxiety. I couldn't go to school, but I still went every day because I couldn't tell my parent what I'm going through. You know, the touch, people walking up to you, touching your hair, and the texture. And they like they say, I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want the school calling me. So what do? I can't tell you that they're doing this. It would be my fault. Why didn't you comb your hair then? You know, the parents, your loved ones are giving you the mess like it's your fault. That's victim blaming and the denial that that's not really happening to you. You minimize it. Oh, they only did that once. It's just all these key terms that they use, you know, which says trigger to me, knowing that you are not listening to me. You think it's my fault, and you just learn how to protect yourself. And one thing that happened for me is, again, back Keisha said he likes music. Music saved my life. Music is everything to me. I learned how to play percussion. Growing up in Haiti, I lived close to the cemetery. I'm getting chills talking about it. Yeah, living at the cemetery, there used to be seances. What I mean by that is they'd be like, they call them Mambo, the Voodoo Kings and all that. They go to the cemetery to do rituals. And I would hear that sound of the drums. And I gotta tell you folks, there's something in that beat. There was something in that beat. I could hear that beat when I'm sleeping. And when I'm in a situation where I get scared, I hear that beat. And I learned how to play that beat. I played in several bands, just that same beat. It could be hip hop. You're gonna hear the beat in there. It could be jazz. That beat, I play it. And it saved my life. What I mean by that is I got to see a lot of stuff. I witnessed, as kids, people don't talk about that, but we need to start having this conversation. As kids on the island, to protect your child, you can get baptized. All right. In some other families, you get what they call a bath with the roots, the trees, and everything. And it's maybe like an old lady. It was like my great grandmother did that. She was 103 years old. She was blind, and she, did it was amazing ceremony for me. And although I couldn't speak, I couldn't walk until I was maybe 5, going on 6. I started speaking in public places now. I get paid to speak. I got track scholarship for D1 school, learn how to sprint, jump. I could dunk in 7th grade. And at one point I was delayed. You talk about being delayed. You're afraid to take chances. So I just started using sport as a vehicle to just check, like those cocky people. I started being a bully myself on the track because I know how it felt. And I didn't know how to control that. I would do starts. If you do track, when they say ready, set, go, you get to try a few times. And I would try on my lane and walk on purpose on the other person's lane so they don't get a chance to try. And when I get real close, I spit on that lane. That's me. And that's embarrassing. Looking back at my behavior that I didn't know how to control. I said, I'm going to get this dude's heart. And once I do that, you're not going to start until I get out the lane. So I got that. So he's going to get 2nd place already. It's almost like it became a way of survival. When I found myself doing it, I didn't think it was nothing wrong with it. I'm like, it's just sport. Sports accept that. It's challenging. It's So that's all I was doing. Because when I started this program with Chris Hickey called Institute for Sports Coaching, and we got coaches that give that message to if you're weak, you're this. Don't you hit like a girl. You this like the third. All these messages when you're young. I can't do nothing. If I do something, I'm gonna get called this. And you can't tell your mom or your pops what's going on. Toughen up. What the heck does that mean? Toughen up. I'm waiting for somebody to describe what does toughen up mean. And I'm almost 50 years old and nobody ever meant nothing to it. Toughen up. What's that mean? Like I can't cry. I can't be the bystander you talk about. You see something, you gotta do something, man. You gotta do something. That's somebody what if your daughter was out there and somebody's picking on your daughter and you find out that person was right there? You say, excuse me, you saw what happened? Yup, they were picking on that's my daughter. Yup, but it's none of my business. You gotta make it your business. You gotta make it your business, man. Because if I go to a scene and I talk to somebody, did you see anything? Yes, you did, and you didn't do jack, we're gonna have a problem. You could have done something, you didn't do nothing. Oh, that's snitching. That's not snitching. Stop that. That's the problem.
Well, even worse, Antonio. People are just pulling out their phones and recording it now, right?
Yeah, for likes.
It's like they want to have the keepsake at somebody's expense, and expenses somebody's life, somebody being
the best
named.
part is, sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I said that's it.
Yeah,
they want to have the keepsake.
We live in a culture right now that promotes that.
It is the culture. It is the culture.
You look at shows like Big Fat Loser. What does that mean? That's a show. And it gets another season. That's the title. Big Fat Loser. Apprentice. You're fired. All these things in our culture is measuring people on you're on this level, you're on that level, you're not good enough. Bachelor, you get to go home, I kick you out. Everything is like, you didn't make it. You're not good enough. You suck. That's what they're doing to us on TV. Reality shows. Hip hop and not put down any shows, whatever, but they got this reunion. People watch the reunion for the fights. Come on, man.
I can't watch that stuff. I need brain food. But one of some of the things you touched on, and Antonio, just like Hisha, I'm so sorry, and Shine, you guys had to experience such harsh childhood, and I can't thank you enough for being here. And thank you, viewers, for tuning in. And if you're tuned in, please share this episode on your page as well. It's such an important topic, and we're doing it in a very significant month. For us Jamaicans, it's Reggae Month, and it's also Black History Month. So while we're talking about so many other things, I thought it was so important to address bullying in this month and how it impacts us. I mean, growing up in the islands, we're used to, as kids, you recited, sticks and stones can hurt my bones, but words alone can't hurt me. And that is so not true, because those words are so powerful. How you're bullied verbally And now you guys are using your voices, your words to just shed light on this, and I can't thank you enough. I do want to include some of the viewers who are thanking you all for being here and for the powerful conversation. Mish McLean says, we are not seeing kids being bullied because of how they wear their hair. A young kid was told by her principal to leave school because of her hair, natural hair. She can return when she cut and change and change her hair. We've seen it where even dreadlocks kids were told, you got to cut off your dreadlocks too. So, I know Yvonne referred to her hair as well, and just how things we're seeing society change, obviously, but this is something that impacts kids because they're being targeted based on their hair, their accents, their culture, their disabilities. And so I don't know if from the viewers, I'm going to go look at some of what the viewers are saying, but anybody want to add on to Antonio?
One thing Antonio said, and it stood out, he speak about the show, The Big Fat Loser. He said there's something in the name, there's a mental thing. A couple years ago, I had a client, because I deal with abused spouse, but this client was a male. He was sent to the women's shelter, the women's center. They do deal with men. And his first visit, he came back and he says he's not going back. So I'm saying, what happened? The psychologist there speak to you. He said, I am being abused by a female. The name of the organization, the Women's Shelter. That does a lot to my manhood. It does a lot to my psyche. It does a lot. It just demasculated me. And that's what he said to me. I remember when picking him up, he was about at the time 54. I had to meet him on the road, pick him up because he was shaking. And within 2 weeks, I'm getting a call after 2:00 in the morning on my phone. His sister, he couldn't deal with it. He had a heart attack while driving in Coconut Creek, crashed and died. So we don't know how we're going to, what our actions, our lack thereof, is going to impact another person. The name, the title, the environment, everything plays into how one perceives themselves and how they go forward.
Yeah,
That's just it.
It's definitely the belief system. One thing that happened, I remember maybe about 2.5 years ago, when the Me Too movement came out. I think I cried. Reason why I cried is I've been fighting this fight for a long time, and to see it on the national level, that conversation about the sexual assault and DV, all type of different inequity that's going on towards all type of genders. To see that going on and finally something's being done about it, I did that. I'm happy for that. And I think right now for bullying, when we talk about what can we do going forward, because we could talk about it, it's the tools that other people's need to intervene and while keeping themselves safe. Because people don't act up, people don't stand up because I might get hurt. We forget a lot of self, and we don't do nothing for so-and-so's daughter, so-and-so's sister, so-and-so's brother, so-and-so's grandma, whatever it is. We don't do anything because we're protecting ourselves. So we need to find ways to teach people how to intervene. These little things, these phones we have right now, I gotta look up some apps. There's apps that you can tell what's going on right next to you without no one knowing that you sent the text. Like this is going on next to me. It starts saying to the police, but there's center places that it goes to. They get the location. You get a little small text, and boom, somebody comes and help out. And this is what we need to at least put some training on and develop those in our community. Because especially when we talk about us reporting and helping, that's a no. You can't do that. You're not black enough if you're telling somebody that's doing wrong. Oh no, I want to take your black card, your hood card away. Now, you never gave it to me. What should I? You could take it back. This is mine.
You're not good enough.
I'm gonna stand up. I'm gonna protect. I'm gonna talk my crap just so I don't watch you do this to somebody. At the same time, you don't need to be doing this anyway, because a lot of people that bully hurt people like Yvonne said. They need that hug, yo. it's okay. You need to hug those people like, dude, you mad about something else. This ain't it. Let's go talk about it. You know, there's resources out in our community. Let's find out who those are. And also some of the resources need to come out and meet those people. Because in our community, when we go places, when we go there, they say something is wrong with us. Exactly, Kish. Something is wrong with us. You're crazy, you sick. But you know
But
what?
that's it, Antonio. There are resources, or we are afraid to search, to ask for the resources because we are afraid to not looking good enough.
Yeah.
We are afraid to not be looking Black enough. We are afraid to not being accepted by the status quo.
Yep.
So guess what? We are going to internalize forever.
Right.
I mean, there comes a time we're going to have to come out and we're going to have to speak about certain things. My girl Sharon, I could have tell that there was something she was trying to write out. However, she was helping me deal with something unbeknown to me. So let's reach out to her and say, hey girl, thank you. I like her. She said, yeah. And it started from there. We have to know when to start the conversation.
Exactly. I think it's because of the stigma, as you guys have said, it's because of the stigma in our community. But bullying steals your self-worth. It robs you of so many things that leads to depression.
Yeah.
And depression leads to suicide and a lot of other things. So it's really important that we have these conversations and we look beyond ourselves. As Antonia said, we have to look beyond ourselves and we have to be able to reach out to other people and not be in fear of what others are going to say or what others are going to think, because we're one community together and we have to help each other.
Wow.
Thank you.
Also, speaking on the therapy part, we think of therapy as, okay, if you go to therapy, that means you have a mental problem or you're crazy. No, we all need an outlet. We all need someone to talk to. If you can't talk to your parents or your sister, or even sometimes you can't even talk to your best friend because sometimes they don't even understand. Find someone. If it's a therapist or we have to find someone to talk to. We have to be able to let that stuff out because it builds up. And then, as Antonia said, then you turn into the bully. And it's not just childhood. It's not just kids. Those kids turn up and they become adults and they get jobs. Okay. And then the bullying, they get married and it's a vicious cycle and the cycle continues. So again, conversations like this is extremely, extremely important.
You're so true, Shan, because someone put in the chat about teachers also bullying students as well. So some of those bullies become teachers, they become doctors, they become nurses, they become us. So how are we healing ourselves through this process? And I read somewhere earlier today where it says, if you're looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see, and that's because people have told you so many negative things, get yourself another mirror. And I think that is so powerful. Get a mirror that reflects who you are. And that stood out to me. So if that message means to something today, please get another mirror. And Kisha, I know you wanted to say something.
Yes, I just wanted to speak on another effect that bullying can have, whether it's in the workplace or in the schools. People actually produce more, succeed more, and perform better when they feel safer, right? Exactly. So even if someone is not the target of bullying, being in that environment alone can have a negative impact on the people who aren't being bullied. So it's not just a bully and the person who's being bullied that it affects. It's the people around them. It is the bystanders. Everyone gets affected. It brings everyone down. So if we could have it, not a cancel culture, but a culture of accountability, a culture of identifying what behaviors are acceptable, unacceptable, toxic, and productive. I mean, because there are some behaviors that, okay, we have issues in our school or in our workplace. What are some solutions that can help us work through things on a personal level and a professional level? Because what you don't want is your education or your checks to be affected by negativity. I mean, I love learning and I love money. So why would I want to be in an environment where I am being discouraged or not feeling like I can produce at my best? It affects everybody. It, like I said, it's not just the targeted individual, but also these bullies have some stuff going on with them too. And while I am not going to ever justify bullying, I feel sorry for them. I think they deserve compassion. They may not get it from me, but they're still a human. And I want to see whether you are bullying or you are being bullied. We all have some trauma. We all have some issues as a result of that. I just want to see it. If I would never want to address the people being bullied, we got to address the bullies too. And that behavior as adults that we see in workplaces, especially corporate America, and with law enforcement, and so on and so forth. Like, we want to address it all. Otherwise, if we only address part of it, you don't really eradicate it. You got to go from different angles.
Finding the source of the problem.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the effects which we have through this conversation of people that are actually being bullied. You know, some of it is people are killing themselves for this, right? They're killing themselves because they've been pushed to such a deep, dark place that if they've not sought help, as we've mentioned before, through therapy. And then part of the challenge with therapy, so if you can give therapy, I want you to contact us or put it in this chat, because one of the challenges with therapy, especially for Caribbean people, is we don't see a lot of therapists that look like us, that can connect to us on a cultural level. And I've had this conversation with Kishai and my cousin, Dr. Lisa Gunderson, who is a therapist as well. So, you know, it's being able to connect, like how many people do you connect with in therapy that you feel really understand you? So that's going to be really important. So if you know of anyone, please feel free to drop that in here as well.
Yeah, one of our friends, one of our good friends, Warner, his wife is a therapist and she's mostly for people of color like us.
Yeah, so if we can...
Sorry, no, that I just want to say really quick, that piece is important because in the medical field, we're still dealing with medical mistrust from minorities. And in therapy, with all of the stigma around therapy, it is important to have some similarity, some connection. For some, it's gender. For some, it's national origin. There needs to be a level of comfort to break those walls down. So it is.
Yeah, if I'm talking to someone that's an American and I'm a kid that grew up in Jamaica, you can't connect to me when I'm angry and ready to get those words out in patois or something and talk, for you to understand how different it is. And people put in the chat that they were more bullied in the islands than they're being bullied here in America. So it's not specific to America. I saw one young lady put in that she, as a female, stepped in between some boys that were bullying another kid because he was perceived as gay. And so women, thank you for stepping up and defending someone. Those are the things that we have to do. And we see bullying as adults. As mentioned, we've seen it in the workplace. As an HR manager, I've had to address that as well in the workplace. So I want to go back to Antonio because I do want to know about your daughter.
Oh, real quick. Samaya was very sweet. I mean, God bless her. She's a wonderful kid. She was the one that came out with my legs. I had, my legs were deformed growing up. I was pigeon-toed, and she had that walk. The 2 feet are like this, and she's so proud and didn't care. So people used to always like look at that and try, something was wrong with her for walking like that. When she walked straight, even family members used to say that. Why is she walking like that? She's walking how she walked. Like, I didn't see nothing wrong with it because that's how I walk. So we even pushed it to a part where we got these things from the doctor so she can, when she falls asleep, to put her feet into it to keep her feet straight. So she doesn't roll, she's uncomfortable. Trying to make sure she walks correctly, because the way she was walking was wrong to a lot of people. Message, all right? So since something's wrong with you, we're gonna put you to sleep this way. We want to tell the doctor's gonna prescribe us something. Something is wrong. That's the message. We put it in our mind. Something is wrong with you. That's why we're doing this, without talking about it, without saying anything about it. So later on, I get to tell her how I used to. My family started telling her, you walk like your father. My friends started, you walk like your father. And she loved her father so bad. She still does, I think. I do believe that. She loved me so much where when she hears that from other people, she was like, oh, hell. And so she started walking even harder with her walk. Like, come on, see me if you want to. She had that swag. And when people used to make fun of her, because she's a big girl. She was probably 5'9". She could center basketball and volleyball and walk the way she walked. So when other kids was to pick on other kids, she would step up and defend them, say, you're not gonna do this right here, that's not cool. And one time, I'll never forget this, she took somebody's phone and broke it. Then she had to pay for it back. And after I had a conversation with her and to talk about it, she's like, Papa, they were picking on this girl. She didn't do nothing to nobody. And they were just picking on her. This girl, she thinks she's so tough. So I took her phone. And she was talking to me, and just like a father that I am, I'm like, you go, girl. And I paid for the phone. You know what I'm saying? You got to show your kids you got their back. You got their back to what they did. She did something good. She just did not know how to do it properly, diplomatically, without getting in trouble. And I think that's why Yvonne put on the chat, where the bystanders, there's 100 people, but there's a perpetrator and a victim. So there's 98 people watching this go down. And you're trying to tell me those 98 people can't do nothing about it? I'll wait.
Got to educate.
That's the problem, man.
Got to educate.
98 people are watching this, they're filming this, they're texting about it, and they're just watching two people get at it. And that one person, if the person getting picked on, if the 98 people said to any of those two, do you guys really want to fight? They're both going to say no. But they only end up putting on the show because they have an audience. 98 people is going to watch this. Something better happen. It's that social pressure that we put our kids through. How many likes, how many views, how many times I walked away. It's all about numbers. And we set our kids up for failure. And in the end, it's not just kids. It's not just females, just us male. It's society. We do this a lot. I got a PhD behind my name. What you got behind your name? Why are we measuring all this kind of stuff, man?
True. And even when you do have, who do you think you are for having that?
Right.
That's the next. Keisha, I've been there.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle. Yeah. And it is face-to-face and cyberbullying. And the next angle that it goes through is that when you call them out on it, I don't say the word confront, but when you call them out, they turn into a victim. When they are the ones, but just that because you now set the boundaries are set, and you say, hey, you have been doing this too many times. About time you either back up, step off, or you as Keisha say, you throw hands or you meet them where they want to be met. They cry victim.
Right.
They cry victim. So where does the cycle end? It's like it's a revolving door. It's a circle. It keeps going round and round and round. So something have to give. I think in our schools there's too much computer, too much of this. We need to learn how to socialize. Go back to the socialization. Go back to speaking, to interact. There's nothing more I can say. That's the best thing, because we don't know the kids them don't know how to do it. They don't.
Parenting comes into play, right? Parenting.
Parenting so much. I mean, there are times, especially most weekends, Sunday or holidays, I only have 2 girls, but there might be 4 boys inside here. My older girl is out on her own because the parents are doing 2, 3 jobs. They don't know what. And I chat to them about everything, their body, sex, men, women. No, the zone. I don't, care. So, I mean, where does it end? Or where does the education begin?
Let me just say that, taking it back, it does take a community, because it's Black History Month. So let's talk about some real issues. The system was designed to break the family apart. And with daddy being gone and mommy has to work 2 and 3 jobs, the kids are left at home and they're up to their own devices. And as Antonia says, if you put up yourself and you fight them, they either fall victim, or then they pull you into their dirty deeds. Exactly. Right? So it's going to take all of us. It's going to take the whole community. Like when I was growing up in Jamaica, right? Everybody looked out for everybody. You did something bad in school, and the teacher set you straight. And by the time you reach home, you've gotten five beatings because the whole community is looking out for one another. But nowadays, we're also caught up within ourselves and what we have and what we don't have, and we're judging one another. We don't have time to look out for one another because everybody's trying to make it up the top of the ladder, and they're not looking back down. You understand? So we just have to keep talking about these things. And what you guys said about therapy, yes, you do have to find someone that you can relate to. Because for me, I held on to some of that stuff, and I brought it into adulthood, and I refuse to go to therapy because of that stigma. But when I finally decided, okay, yes, I'm gonna go to therapy because I need to move past this and go on with my life, I found somebody that could relate to me on a religious level. To me, the color thing didn't matter. What mattered to me was my religious base, because my life that's what surrounds my life. So, and that's what worked for me. So, but guys, let me just say this: do not be ashamed of going to therapy, because if you keep all that stuff bottled up inside of you, one of these days it's gonna come out. It's gonna have to come out, and it might not be pretty, because as a parent, you're gonna feed that stuff to your children, and then they're gonna feed that to their children, and that's how it continues.
So thank you for that. And sometimes it doesn't even come out, Sharon. That's why we have kids that end up committing suicide. And there are some strong adults out there that I'm a firm believer myself in breaking cycles, but it takes a lot. So there, for those that can do those things, I mean, you're powerful beyond measure. And everyone on this panel is so powerful tonight because we're having the conversation. I do want to say, Jay Sharp, thank you for this comment. He says, it's important to openly discuss bullying with our kids before it happens. Most of us experience the first event at school. If not handled effectively and communicated openly, we continue to experience bullying throughout life, workplace, community, church, etc. Bullies are hurt kids. People who are hurting others is a cry for help. So having the conversations with your kids and how to handle it, should it happen, I think is very important. So thanks for that point. So we can have these conversations early with our children, whether they're doing it and showing them the impact of what they're doing, as well as being the recipient. And Antonia, is there anything else that you wanted to share about your daughter? Because I know you were speaking about her too.
No, basically, like I said, the thing with my daughter, I mentioned the Maya effect, which if you take a look at it, is when you see yourself in somebody else and notice that they are handling yourself better than you are handling yourself. That makes sense? It's when it's like empathy to the on steroid. You put yourself in somebody else's shoe and know what they're going through and take it for them and be able to move on from that and do it again and again and again. I was ready. And that's why my daughters, when we talk about the Maya effect, that's why we're going to schools, we're going to church, mosque, wherever it is that I need to go to speak, just so I can teach that model where kids be empowered by themselves. Because at the end of the day, we're not doing anything. The 98 people just sit down. So we have to go to the schools or the church, wherever they are, this is how you empower yourself to do something and say something. Don't believe the hype outside. Well, my mom told me, mind my business. That's the message we tell our kids. So when he or she sees something, well, my mom and dad told me not to do nothing, so I'm gonna mind my business. We got to go back. We're going back to have this conversation with our kids. We can't do that no more. Mind your business. That's what they do. They mind their business. They listen to mom and dad and to everybody else, to the community. Mind your business. So they believe it and they don't do jack. And now this is our fault. And that's what I talk about accountability, is that the accountability is just knowing that I could do more than this right here. This conversation online is going to continue, but what we're going to do tomorrow physically, like, you know what I'm saying? Because we could talk and we like write a poem. I know a poem's going to come out of this, Sharon, and I'm waiting to hear about that. You know, choreograph.
Oh yeah, a poem is going to come out of it.
You know, a write-up, whatever we're going to do, we have to do
right.
Start the difficult conversation. And I want to have it, man.
We are. And this conversation continues. We certainly need a part 2 to this.
Yeah.
And to your point, Antonio, you know, we have to walk the walk, right? I know for me as an adult, and most people know I play volleyball, and I've walked off the court in defending the underdog because someone was bullying them. And I've done that multiple times. I've left certain groups because I do not stand for you berating other people that don't play as good as you do. So we do, as simple as sports, we carry this stuff through our lives. But how everyone else, those 95 people watching, react to it, certainly is a way to impact change, to say that behavior is not allowed, right? And a lot of the viewers are saying it starts at home, in what we're communicating to our children, setting the boundaries, which is a lot that you guys have mentioned as well, and finding that mirror to look at yourself and knowing how beautiful you are and how powerful you are. And I think that's what you need to empower in your children, and that they can come to you and know that you will defend them, despite the fact that you have to balance discipline with them as well, too.
All right.
So I want to go around to everyone here tonight. Thank the viewers as well for tuning in and for sharing this very important episode. And for Laverne Gordon, who is a key, strong woman out there fighting against domestic violence, for sponsoring tonight's show with the Love Life Now Foundation. So let's start with Yvonne. Anything you want to say to us, Yvonne?
If it packs our emotional being, kids turn into adults. Being an adult, you live a life of continuous depression. It robs you of your worth. You don't live to that fulfillment. You might pass up on employment opportunities. You could do better. You pass it up on love. It just robs you. It totally robs you. You're not yourself. You have to make a concerted effort. As you say, you look into that mirror and you say, oh crap, I can be more than this. And then you deal with it. That's my thing.
Thank you so much. And we're so glad you joined us tonight. I finally got you on the show.
I was ready to run.
And thanks for all you're doing in our community as well, to keep uplifting us and impacting change. And Mr. Kishai, thank you so much. You're always so well spoken. And I know your mama, Andrea, is beaming with pride like the rest of us. Any parting words for us?
Yeah, I feel like this topic starts with the family, does start at home. If there is a loving, effectively communicative environment, I do feel that you can set your kids up for success, but that goes beyond the home. We have to make sure that we know how our children are communicating and existing out in the world wherever they go, and that they understand they're equal and that they're equal to everybody. Nobody deserves to be put down or ever feel like they're lesser than. Everyone's beautiful. Everyone's existence deserves to be validated. Um, I'm so glad that I have come a long way, but I do in my heart believe that bullying is avoidable. It doesn't have to happen. So whatever we need to do collectively to make sure that no one experiences what I experienced, I would be so thrilled, because I truly would not want what any of us went through to happen to anyone ever again. Like I said, our education and our money are so important. So is our happiness. So is our wellness. And I want to see people thrive. I would love to see a world with no bullying. And that is something that I will hold on to for hope. I will never give up hope. And I thank you all for having me on here, and I appreciate you all for watching. And this is not going to be the last time I talk about this. So I look forward to continuing this much needed conversation.
Yes,
Certainly
Chief.
not the
I
last
hear
time.
you.
Kisha, you know I have you on speed dial. I just can't thank you enough because you're always so honest, so well spoken, so loving, and such a handsome man. When COVID's finished,
The genetics, you know.
I'm giving you a big, big hug.
Oh, I miss dancing with my Kisha. Miss you.
But you know, your vulnerability in trying to impact change and by sharing your personal journey with bullying is so powerful. I can't thank you enough, and so do our viewers as well. So thank you. I love you.
I love you all too. I love you. I love all of you. Everybody.
Love you, bro.
Miss Sharon, who started this whole conversation, making
Mhm.
Yes.
alive.
It was an honor and a privilege. And thank you so much for having me on. I want to thank the viewers for tuning in. You guys, even after the show is over, please share. People need to hear this. The conversation needs to be continued. You know, as I always say, words are very powerful. Choose them wisely. Love is free. Pass it on. And change starts with one. And that one is you, me. And set the flame a burning. And just let's live in love and unity. Thank you guys again for having me.
Thank you, Sharon. And I'm so looking forward to that poem. And I know the viewers are making so many comments tonight, so I do apologize that I wasn't able to get to them. But I do thank you for them, and I thank everyone I want everyone on this panel to go in and respond, because some of the comments may be for you as well. But Sharon, to your point, it starts with us. I'm a firm believer as a child that was abused by my father physically in more horrific ways that I can state. It's just, I broke that cycle. And my kids, when your kids grow up and say, Mom, thank you for breaking that cycle, it just makes you know that you have the power as an individual. You don't have to repeat that behavior. You absolutely do not. So great point. It starts with us to make that change. And Antonio, thank you for being here again. Any words for us?
Just want to say thank you for having me again, meeting this wonderful panel, different perspective. And I want to say thank you for sharing your personal stories with me to hear that. Because sometimes you do feel like you're out there alone. And the thing that happens to a lot of our kids, I say kids because they're young, they think they're the only one going through that. And we'd have to give them permission. And that's what we're doing right now, giving others permission to step up. And that's what we did with the Me Too movement in the beginning. Give people permission to say, you know what, this happened to me. This is what happened. And this is how I felt. And it's not my fault either that I was picked on. What do you think about, and you can look back and see those 97 people, 98 people like this saying, yup, that's all you need to do to show support to somebody going through something. I hear you, I feel you, I understand you. What do you want me to do? Don't take the power from them where I'm gonna do this for you. No, what would you like me to do? I want it to stop. And there's 98 people now all gonna get together. We're gonna talk to this one person. The one person's 98, that one person gonna be like, maybe I might not do this anymore. And that's how it starts. Just nod your head. I hear you. I'm here to listen to you. You are not lying. It's not your fault. Just simple stuff like that will make changes. Start right here with the head, man. And you may go talk about humankind. There's kind, you could be kind, you could be kind of good or kind of bad. That's the thing. So we have to focus on being kind of good. And we don't know what that is because no one is teaching that anymore. What's a good person? What does it feel like to be good? We can't do that. If I tell Keisha that, yo, I like your smile, bro, uh-oh, something's wrong with Antonio, so I can't do that. I gotta be emotionally constipated. That's what's going on.
True.
I hold it, like you say, I hold it in. I can't say this. I can't wear this. I can't like this type of song. One time I was rocking Mary J.
And that's all you need.
I was like, you call me all type of name because I'm jamming to Mary J. Like, come on, dude. Don't try to put me in a box. And that's what we need to do. We need to stop putting kids in a box or certain groups in a box. I'm a member of this group right now called MDI, Mentor Discovery Inspiring, which is a bunch of men. We get together and we provide an opportunity for men to share those difficult part of their week with us. And we give them feedback. There's no judgment, no nothing. You know, we do that. At the Freemason Lodge where I go to, we have those same conversation. So I put myself in settings where we are forced to be a certain way. I help them take the jacket off. I help them take all that tough stuff off. Take it all off. Once you do all that, then you get to see the real you, then the work begins. And that's what we need to do with our people. Give them permission to do what is right. And I love you all for this show. I get geeked about this kind of stuff, man. I will fly anywhere, online training, whatever you want. I love this. Great, man, Dawn.
Thank you, Antonio.
Don, before we close out, I just want to say quickly, I also have a group on Facebook. It's called Women Supporting Women, where once a month I highlight women in the community that are doing positive things to show that it doesn't matter where you come from. You can be rich or poor, but if you find it inside of you, you can also make a change. You can also make a difference. You can use your status and your accomplishments to encourage someone else.
Yeah. I love it. I love you guys.
Yes.
I want to say, tune in next Wednesday because Antonio raised a great point, which segues into next week's show. What? Unbeknownst to him, it's called Brotherhood.
Oh, so, okay.
We are having our Brotherhood episode.
Great.
So let's take off them jackets and get down. Thank you for tuning in. I love you guys.
Thank you, Dawn. Love you guys. Bye. Bye, Kishai.